Hi and welcome or welcome back to the Books Are Everywhere. Today we are here with a video I've wanted to do since, well, the end of the year of 2025, and we are now into February and I've still not filmed that video, but we are finally here and I'm still determined to make this video. I am completely winging it though. I do not know. I do not have a plan of what I want to show you. But I really love reading stats. I keep my own spreadsheet. I obviously use Storygraph as well. And I thought I just wanted to take you through basically what I read in 2025, including my reading stats, because I'm a nerd and I love stuff like this and I love keeping a track of my reading. So basically I'm just going to screen share my Storygraph stats for last year and the thing they put together for you, like the reading wrap up, but also show you my personal spreadsheet that I use, which I also track like my YouTube stuff on, but I won't show you guys that bit. I'll just show you the reading side of it. So I'll get on to sharing my screen. So I'm now sharing my screen so you can see what my spreadsheet looks like. So we're starting with the spreadsheet first. This is actually a very, very old template by Reader Ferocious, who had a blog. I don't know how old this is now, so I'm not sure if they still use that blog or not. And I haven't looked them up in a while because I generally just use the spreadsheet that I was using the previous year. I have also edited this quite a lot to suit my own needs, so this is not the standard spreadsheet at all, it's just using it as a template. Most of this is very familiar to what it looked like before, when you originally get the spreadsheet, but there's just, I use like some of my own tabs, I use like a calendar on here and stuff that I've made myself. So yeah, it does look very different, and I just copy it every year and use the one I used the previous year, and then that year it will obviously change slightly. So if you want to go and Google it, it will be out there somewhere, I believe, but I'm not sure if they keep an up-to-date one for this year or not. I don't know. This bit of hair is really distracting me, so I'm sorry if it's distracting you too, but it's there, it's with us. Anyway, this spreadsheet uses the first tab is like raw data, which doesn't look like much in comparison to the other tabs, which have obviously the nice graphs and stuff. But this is this is the raw data for all of the tabs. So it pulls all of this data from all of the different tabs and then it uses this data to create the graphs. I've learned a lot, I guess, about using spreadsheets in the past couple of years, and I think that's really helped me with this sheet and with the 2026 one to be able to actually update it and customize it a little bit more to what I want to use it for. So yeah, this raw data is not that like visual, but then on the bookish stats you have a really nice visual spread of graphs and charts and stuff. So on here we have reading by age range. So in 2025 I read more adult books than I have I think in previous years. My split between like YA and adult has been more even, but in 2025 I read 67 adult books, 40 YA and 7 middle grade. Then we have books by release, so backlist stuff I already owned was 32, ARCs was 45, that's crazy, that's a lot. Rereads was 4 and new was 11. Then we have books by genre, which I always find it really interesting. So I read the most fantasy, which was 39.5%, and then 27.2% romance. And the smaller ones are sci-fi, thriller, classics, contemporary, graphic novels, historical fiction. Oh, there's a tiny one in there. Literary fiction, 1, mystery, non-fiction. So there's a whole split across there. But fantasy was my biggest and romance was my second biggest, which is interesting to see that I'm still getting like fantasy on the top of everything else. I think is really interesting because I feel like I didn't read as much fantasy last year as I normally do, but obviously the graphs say otherwise. Then we have reading by source. So I bought 44 of my books. I had 45 ARCs. I borrowed 5 and 6 were a gift. By format, I listen to more audiobooks than anything else, which doesn't surprise me because I listen to probably, I would say, nearly one a week, and I read 44, so 44 audiobooks. But then I guess hardcover and paperback combined is 67, so 37 paperbacks, 30 hardcovers. I guess obviously combined then they outweigh the audio, and 3 ebooks. And then the rating breakdown, I always find this so interesting. So 4 stars just came out on top with 30 books, but then we have 29 3 stars and 28 3.5 stars. I use half ratings on this, which is really helpful. And I have 3 2.5, 3 2 stars, 8 4.5 and 9 5 stars. And then on my owned books versus read, I can't remember how this data polls. I think it's on maybe on my 2025 hauls list. I'm not sure if I've read, let me just see if that tallies. Yeah, so I've read 41, which is the read, and then I've bought 28 that I still haven't read. My ARC's read versus TBR, I actually read all of the proof copies I got, which is cool. By publisher type is really interesting. I unfortunately don't really read self-pub. So many fall into the big 5, even if you think they're not, even if you think they're an independent, it turns out they are a subsidiary of a big 5, an imprint, a press. It is crazy how little falls outside that. So I read 100 big 5 books and 14 indies. I often find indies might be like sci-fi or graphic novels tend to fall outside sometimes. Number of books per month. This graph is wild because like the jump from 14 of January to 3 in March is mad. I don't remember reading that little books in March, and 6 in February. That's mad. But then back up to 14 in April, 13, 11, 8, 10, 8, 6, 10 and 11 in December. I really don't remember falling so low to 3. That's quite low for me, but I guess I just did not have a big reading month that month. This also seems to calculate based on when you started the book, so if I didn't finish it till April, there might be more that I would count as March, because for me I count it if I read most of it in that month, and then if I read most of it the next month it falls to the next month, so it's interesting to see how they do it. And then how I heard about my reads, so I have social media 7.4%, publisher, so normally proofs I'll put as a publisher, 19.4%, a friend recommended 19.4%, browsing was 8.3%, and then author, I will put author if I've read from them previously or if it's part of the series I'm reading, and that's 45.4%, so most of them are authors I read from before. And then ARCs read per month in 2025, I have 4 in January, 4 in February, 3 in March. So all of the books I read in March were ARCs apparently. 4 in April, 7 in May, 2 in June, 6 in July, August is 4, September's 3, October's 2, none in November, and then 5 in December. That's quite a lot. I do feel like I read quite a lot of proofs and had quite a lot of proofs last year. Looking at my spreadsheet, I had quite a few, but it's interesting to see what such a big portion it actually makes up of my reading. The next, talking of, the next sheet is actually, the next tab is my proof list, which I just keep the title, the source, the publisher, genre, the pub date, whether I've read, reviewed it, and the status, and I did manage to read all of them, which is really, really cool. I feel like I definitely made it a focus of 2025 to keep up to date with my proofs, because I have so many older books on my TBR. As you can see, like 45 of the books I read in 2025 were proof copies. It shows that there are so many older ones on my backlist that I still haven't gotten to, and I always feel really guilty about that if I ever request something new and I haven't read an older one. So I'm trying really hard, and I am keeping up to date with that in 2026 so far as well, which is really cool to see. Then we have the 2025 reads. So this is like the main sheet, which unfortunately my screen sharing is not wide enough to show you all of the columns, so bear with me a sec. Okay, then that's all of the columns on this sheet, so you can see the whole thing. So we have the start date and the finish date, and then it calculates how many days it took you to read, then the title, the series name, and then the number of book, the number this book is in the series, the author name, the year of publication, the genre, the audience, so the age range, I guess, that it's intended for. You can read any book at any age, I believe. That's like a firm belief of mine. And then we have pages, the format, my star rating, whether it's a reread or I've reviewed it, referral type, publisher and source. So as you can see, it really shows when you've looked at the graphs where the data comes from, because you can see what we've just talked about I filled in on this sheet. So let's look at March out of curiosity. So I was reading Swordcatcher, but I started that in February, so that probably counts as February, even though it took me most of March to read. And then we have Acts of Cupidity, Great Big Beautiful Life, and Rat Picker King. Those two books did take me so long to read as well, Swordcatcher and the Rat Picker King, so I'm not shocked at that stat. And you can see that I started 3 books in March, and that's where the stat came from. So for me, I'd probably say that was more like 4 books that I understand. And I also didn't finish The Listeners until 6th of March, so it's interesting. I don't really mind the way it calculates it for looking at it like on a year basis, but for looking at it month on month I would probably talk about them slightly differently. But yeah, really interesting to see how it calculates everything. We also have some DNFs on here. There's only a couple. There's one there, but I definitely DNF more last year than I ever have. Even like 4 is a lot more than I ever would have done before. I really don't DNF a lot, so the fact I'm now allowing myself to do that is a good thing. But yeah, that's the basis of this sheet. And then we have Bookshelf stats. I don't know why that's there, because I won't show you like my issue stats and stuff, but I do use it to track everything. Then we have 2025 hauls. So this is really interesting, and I think I added this. I'm not sure if it comes as the spread, like as part of the sheet. I can't quite remember, but I find it really interesting to calculate what I've spent. And this definitely comes down year after year, which I'm really happy with. And I'm definitely curating what I buy so much more now than I used to, which is really, really good. And most of my cost comes from Illumicrate, my Afterlight subscription, and anything I buy to add to my Afterlight collection, because that is definitely the most expensive. Obviously if I'm getting stuff through work from a publisher, then I'm not spending money on it, which is why per book I think this is not that much money. So per book this works out as about £7.50, which is not a grand lot. If it was all paperbacks, obviously that would be quite a lot, but I guess I'd be like near the RRP, but because there's quite a lot of hardbacks in here, I don't think that's that much. But yeah, we also have a lot of gifts in here, or stuff that I've maybe got from friends or colleagues. So and I like to tick whether I've read it or not, and I have the little calculation to tell me the total I've read. I think the past couple of years I've wanted that amount to be at least 50% of what I buy I've read by the end of the year, so I'm not keeping stuff around for like years. I just want to kind of try and get away from that and keep on top of my reading a little bit more, because I'm aware that I keep stuff for a long time before I read it, especially I don't want to do that with proofs like ever. So it's interesting to see that I did do that and more. I read more than 50%. But yeah, on here you have the date that you got it. To be honest, it takes me a while to log stuff sometimes. Like they will just sit on the side. I think I have this fear of adding them to my physical TBR and upping my physical TBR, so which it makes no difference. Like whether I log it now or later, it's always going to be on there, and I always like to cheat it by reading a book before I add it to this sheet, which is also silly because it makes no difference, but in my head it makes a difference. I'm sure some of you will relate, but anyway. So sometimes, as you can see, like I added everything on the 29th. I used to try and calculate like what day I got it, but I'm like, it doesn't matter really. Like in the grand scheme of things, it could be any day. So I just put the date I log it now pretty much. And then the title, the author, the pub year, the publication year, the price, the format, and the source, and whether I've read it or not, which is what I keep on this sheet. Then on the buddy reads tab, I obviously didn't do that many buddy reads in 2025, but I also maybe did more that I didn't log on here. I don't always log them on here, because normally if I'm doing a buddy read, somebody, like I will have sent a list of pages to someone, or they will have sent a list of pages to me. And ones I do with Courtney where we go on holiday and read together, I don't log, because we just sit down and read all in one go. This is for like being able to structure your pages every day. This is really useful and I do use it, as you can see, but I don't use it all that much. But yeah, you can add your start date and end date and how many days it's going to take, your title, author, the person you're buddy reading with, all of these are with my friend Alex. And then the pages for how many days. I've extended this, I think, because it maybe started on 7, so I've extended it to 10. And then when you finished it, you can tick if you finished, reviewed it, and what you rated it as, and put any notes, which I've left there, but I never used that column at all. But yeah, that is my reading spreadsheet and everything that's on there, so I hope you enjoyed seeing everything on there. And what a nerd I am in logging this. I do have, I'll give you a sneak peek at my 2026 one, sorry, which as you can see is exactly the same, it's just a different colour scheme. I like to choose a different colour scheme every year, and I go around changing every single colour on every tab. But yeah, so far this year I have read, how many books have I read so far this year? I guess I'm on the 19th or 18th, because we don't want to count this top one, which is a example line. So I think I'm on the 19th book, or no, 18th book this year right now. But so I've read 16, I think. So yeah, we have my, obviously this is the first tab, everything's the same as it was before. But yeah, we have all of the graphs. So right now I am still reading the most fantasy, but there's also quite an even split right now, I guess, because I haven't read that many. Stuff hasn't been drowned by like one genre. I'm still reading 30% proofs and then 60% from my backlist and just one new book. Still a lot of audiobook, but mostly paperback so far. And my ratings, oof. So 5 3 stars, 4 3.5, 4 stars, 2 4.5 and 2 5 stars. Yeah, it's just interesting to see. I won't go into it too much. You can see that I still have like 1 arc on my TBR, which I'm currently reading actually, and 2 that I've already read. In fact, I can mark that as currently reading. But yeah, so that is what the sheet looks like for 2025. Let's go on and look at Storygraph as the next thing. But yeah, I find these kind of Storygraph Goodreads, like the stats that it creates for you, super interesting to look through as well. And I thought it'd be interesting to show you what my Storygraph said about my reading last year, and it's just nice to see all the covers and stuff of the books as well. Sometimes it can give you a little bit more of a sense of achievement or like a connection to what you read. So my 2025 reading wrap up, I read 110 books across 37,041 pages, which is crazy. The first book I read, I finished, was The Phoenix Ballroom by Ruth Hogan, which took me like 30 odd days to read. It was crazy going into 2025. The last book I read was Every Step She Takes by Alison Cochrane, which I loved. There's also this mood map of my reading, which is really interesting to see. I feel like Storygraph has a real like focus on mood and pace and things like that, which is really interesting. So I guess I stayed pretty consistent. I don't know, because there's no axis on the side. I don't know what the mood actually is that it's telling me, but it looks like I've read a lot of lighter books, I guess. A lighter push the line up and darker books pull the line down. So it went down a little in April and May, and then went back up again for the rest of the year. So this is also like super interesting because you get the books and the pages. So like in March, like I read less books obviously, but I read nearly 2,000 pages, which is really cool, because if you think about it like that, it's also kind of on par with October when I read 6 books, so 4 to 6. So it's different because obviously Storygraph calculates that slightly differently. My spreadsheet thought I read 3 books and Storygraph thinks I read 4 in March. But yeah, it's actually not that different. So obviously it is pretty consistent to pages to books, but it's interesting to compare both of them and see. Sometimes it can be like, this one is like bang on, but then everything else is just slightly off. So yeah, it's really cool to see that one. I finished my reading goal, which was 100 books. I don't wildly set it like higher than normal or higher than I've achieved before now. I think 100 books for me, like that's an amazing amount to read in a year, and it's also achievable to me. And I don't really matter, it doesn't really matter, like I don't really mind other than that, like how many I read in a year. So it's cool that I obviously beat it by 10. interesting. So Storygraph thinks I spent more time with romance than I did with fantasy, and contemporary's a lot higher too. So obviously the genres that Storygraph thinks differ with what I would categorise something as. I think for me, if something's like romantasy, for example, I would put that as fantasy over romance, whereas maybe in Storygraph people would put romance over fantasy. So I don't know, maybe that's why, I'm just guessing. But romance is 50. What did my... Let's just see. So 31 against 50 is quite a difference. So romance is 50, fantasy is 45. What was it on my spreadsheet? 45, interesting. Exactly the same. Contemporary is 35, whereas this was only 11. And then young adult is a genre which I don't agree with. That's like, you will obviously have fantasy and romance within young adult, so I don't see it as a genre. LGBT, I also don't really see as a genre. I think we should have LGBTQIA+ books across all genres and represented in all books we read, all different types of books we read. But apparently I read 25 books that were classed as LGBTQIA+ on Storygraph, so that's interesting. The longest book I read was 604 pages. I quite like that I've beaten that already in 2026 actually. I do get daunted by big books, so it's cool to see that I got obviously a plus 600 page book last year, but also that I'm already reading. I have already read a plus 600 page book longer than this one in 2026. The shortest book was 60 pages, 10% of that, which is interesting. Which was The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke. The average length of the book I read was 335 pages, and it took me 8 days to finish each book. That's interesting, I think, because I often will read 2 books at once. Like, I will normally be reading a physical book and an audiobook at the same time, and I try and make them different enough that I can differentiate. I don't tend to read more than 2, but occasionally I do if I'm reading a non-fiction as well, but I'm really bad at reading non-fiction. It's also better for me to read non-fiction audiobooks, so they would overlap, I guess, as well. So I guess, like, for me, I would think that as, like, if it's taking me 8 days to finish 2 books, it's like 4 days per book, but obviously that's not how it works. It's just, that's kind of what's in my head. So the least time I spent was 1 day on this book. I don't know why it's picked that one, because I'm sure there are lots of other books I finished in a day, especially when me and Courtney went away at the start of 2025. This is one of the books I read, and I'm sure there are others that it could have chosen from that holiday. And then the most time was 106 days. That is just proving how bad I am at non-fiction. The reason why this is so long is because I started reading it physically in the summer, didn't finish it until I picked the audiobook in like November, and I actually restarted it. So I could have started, like, re-logged this on Storygraph as a new read, and it probably only took me like 10 days to read it the second time round. But I obviously didn't bother like removing it and re-adding it. I just like carried on reading it. So yeah, it thinks I spent 106 days reading that, which is crazy to see. The authors I spent the most time with, interesting. So Agatha Christie makes sense because I did my Agatha Christie vlog where I read 5 Agatha Christie books. B.K. Borison, I guess I read 3 Love Like Farms books and then Good Spirits, I think. And then Catherine Webber, I reread all of the Twin Crowns books, and I think there's 5 of those. Oh, but one of them's written by Catherine Doyle on her own, so that makes sense too. My average rating was 3.63, shame it's not higher, but that's still pretty good, I guess. 3.5 for me is like, I quite liked it, so, and 3 is like, I liked it, so that's not bad. I had 8 5-star reads according to here. Interesting that my spreadsheet says 9 and this says 8, so I wonder what the difference is, which one's different. Let's go and find out. There must be one that I kind of changed my mind on. Oh, interesting, it's Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I don't know, I guess I would maybe put as a 4.5, but I don't know, it gave me the feelings at the end, so I can see why I gave it a 5 on my spreadsheet. I think it was one that I sat with and I thought about a lot afterwards, and for that reason I bumped it up to a 5 after, but like maybe a week after, and I obviously didn't do that on Storygraph, but it did really sit with me afterwards, and I do love Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. So yeah, I probably would count that as a 5-star now, but it's also nice to see I had some other 5 stars on here that I would say I pretty much stand with all of these. Maybe this one could be a 4.5. I think the ending didn't quite make it, like, wasn't quite what I wanted, but I don't know what I would have wanted, so I can't judge it that harshly. But the rest, 100%, I would say this was amazing. All of them were really, really good, so that's cool to see. And the split of my ratings, I think this is going to be very similar to, yeah, it's probably like that one difference, I guess, but this is very similar to what we've already looked through. Interesting that I have one that's a no rating, which is probably one that I DNF'd. It won't show me anyway. Some months are better than others, so June was my highest average rating of 3.94, but May, just the month before, was 3.41. And then my most pages read was in May. That's interesting. 4,362 pages. I would have guessed January, so that's quite cool to see. Other Storygraph users and my 2025 reads, so most shelved, 550,000 of you read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and I finally read it and I rated it 3 stars. Didn't carry on with the series. I liked it, but not enough to carry on. And the least shelved, that is so sad, is 46 by Verbota by Jo Bell, which I loved. And if you have any interest in canals, please go and read it. It is amazing. And I rated it 5 stars because it was just incredible. I loved it and it taught me so much. My mom's since read it and she loved it too. And I would highly recommend that book. Highest rated is King of Beasts by Catherine Doyle, which is 4.33. I think that comes out next month or the month after. I always find proofs are more highly rated, especially the ones later in series. My rating was 4 stars. I explored 51 works of new authors, including Diana Wynne Jones, Takuya Asakara. I'm trying to think what they wrote. Maybe The Lantern of Lost Memories? And Sophia Germain. Let's not talk about that one. 51 of the books that I read were part of a series. I revisited a total of 5 books this year. I think my spreadsheet said 4, so that's interesting. What does this say? Is it really interesting to see the differences between these? Okay, so it says I reread? I don't think I reread that. That must be an accident. Sad Ghost Club Volume 4, Runaways Volume 1, Twin Crowns, Girls of Paper and Fire and Girls of Storm and Shadow. So I think this one's missing the Sad Ghost Club, which I think is correct. I don't think I read that twice. I don't think that was a reread. But yeah, anyway, only a slight discrepancy. I decided not to finish 3 of the books, which, again, isn't that a discrepancy? There was 4 on the spreadsheet. Yeah, I think that's where the no rating comes in, which was for, oh my god, The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, which I think I just maybe removed from all of my shelves on Storygraph, and that's why it's not showing up. And I read 65 books from my own shelves this year, which, is that different or the same? I guess that would be backlist. Oh, but I don't know how this calculates, so I'm not going to be able to really see, because I think proofs are counted separately. And I think last but not least, we have 2025 at a glance, which just shows you all of the books I read in 2025. So I'll give this a quick scroll just to show you, give you a taste of everything I read. I do really like looking at this because I think it looks really, really pretty. Oh, I got that author wrong. I can't remember who wrote, what that author wrote. I'll have a look in a minute. But yeah, the covers just look so beautiful together, and it is really nice to see all of them. There we go. So that's everything. Let me see what that author wrote. So it is Sakara. Oh, it is The Vanishing Cherry Blossom Bookshop that I read by that author. Anyway, so that is all I have to show you of my own stats and my Storygraph stats. I hope you have enjoyed this video as much as I've loved filming it. It's taken me way too long to get around to filming this, but it's one that like I said, I've wanted to do it for ages, since the start of the year, or the end of last year. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this as well, and I will see you next time. Bye!